The Galactic Council had always classified humans as a Level 3 species, intelligent but primitive, violent, and destined for self-destruction. This classification was considered an established fact, backed by thousands of years of observation. Humans were a curiosity at best, a cautionary tale at worst. Admiral Trell stood before the massive holographic display, his gray skin wrinkling with concern as he reviewed the latest reports from Earth. He had monitored this backwater planet for over 50 cycles, expecting to document its inevitable collapse. Instead, he was witnessing something unprecedented. "Counselor Mira, you need to see this," he called to his superior, who floated into the observation deck with the characteristic grace of the luminary species. "Another human war?" she asked, her voice tinged with the boredom that came from watching countless civilizations rise and fall. "No. Quite the opposite." Trell expanded the hologram, showing Earth from multiple angles. "They've achieved fusion. Stable, clean fusion. And they're sharing the technology freely among their nations." Mira's luminescent eyes widened. "That's unexpected. Their psychological profile suggests they would weaponize such a discovery." "There's more." Trell swiped to another image. "They've begun terraforming their dead neighbor planet. Mars, they call it. And look at these atmospheric scrubbers they've developed for their homeworld. Their climate stabilization efforts have accelerated beyond our projected timeline by 2 centuries. Counselor Mira drifted closer to the display, her skepticism evident. "A temporary cooperation, perhaps. Their tribal instincts have been channeled into competition for scientific achievement rather than territory," Trell interrupted, something he'd never done before in his 300-year career. "They've established a global research network. Different nations race to solve problems, then share solutions. It's efficient." The word hung in the air between them. Efficiency was the highest praise in the Council vocabulary. "How did we miss this?" Mira whispered, more to herself than to Trell. "Because we were looking for the wrong signs," said Director Vask, who had entered silently. As head of xenosociology, his opinion carried weight. "We applied our standard evolutionary model to them. But humans don't follow the standard model." Vask approached the hologram and brought up a new display. "A timeline of human history. Look here." He pointed to various points on the timeline. Black Death, World Wars, Climate Crisis. In each case, we predicted collapse. In each case, they adapted. Not gradually, but in creative leaps. Trell nodded slowly. "Their chaos has a pattern. They thrive under pressure." "More than that," Vask said, his voice taking on an unusual intensity. "They improve under pressure. Most species reach equilibrium and plateau. Humans never plateau. They're constantly in flux, constantly evolving their society." "Are you suggesting we reclassify them?" Mira asked, the question itself almost heretical. "I'm suggesting we've been wrong about them all along," Vask replied. "And I'm not the only one who thinks so." The door to the observation deck slid open again, and all 3 aliens turned to see the imposing figure of Grand Overseer Lox enter. His presence here, so far from the Council's central worlds, spoke volumes about the significance of the situation. "Show me everything," Lox commanded, his deep voice resonating through the room. As Trell compiled the data, a message alert flashed on the main display. "Sir, we're detecting a transmission. The humans have just launched their first faster-than-light probe." Grand Overseer Lox's expression remained unreadable, but his voice betrayed a hint of what might have been respect. "It seems," he said slowly, "we may need to prepare for contact sooner than anticipated." Mira looked troubled. "But our protocols for first contact require at least another century of observation." "Our protocols," Lox replied, "were clearly based on flawed assumptions. We were wrong about humans. The question now is, how wrong were we?" James Miller had spent 15 years working for NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Program. Most days were routine. Track objects, log anomalies, go home. Today was not a routine day. "Sir, you need to see this," his assistant Tom called from across the lab. "The Voyager 9 probe is picking up something unusual." James hurried over, coffee sloshing onto his hand. Define unusual. It's receiving a signal, a directed signal. Tom's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his excitement. And it's not one of ours. James stared at the display as the implications sank in. Humanity had been broadcasting into space for over a century, hoping for a response. Now it seemed someone had answered. Within hours, the facility transformed into a hive of activity. Government officials, military personnel, and the world's top linguists descended on their small monitoring station in the Arizona desert. Dr. Lisa Reed, the lead xenolinguist, worked tirelessly with her team to decipher the message. After 3 days without sleep, she called for an emergency meeting. It's not just a greeting, she explained to the assembled officials. It's an apology. General Williams frowned. An apology? For what? Lisa pointed to her translation matrix. As best we can tell, they're apologizing for misjudging us, for classifying us incorrectly, and failing to recognize our potential. She looked up from her notes. They want to meet. Who are they? James asked the question everyone was thinking. They call themselves the Galactic Council, and apparently they've been watching us for thousands of years. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices, theories, and concerns. General Williams called for order. Where do they want this meeting to take place? He demanded. That's the thing, Lisa replied. They're already here. They have a ship in orbit on the far side of the moon. They've been there for decades. The news spread across the globe like wildfire, despite attempts to contain it. Humanity's reaction was as varied as the species itself. Fear, excitement, skepticism, hope. Religious institutions issued statements ranging from apocalyptic warnings to proclamations of divine validation. Stock markets fluctuated wildly. Social media platforms crashed under the volume of traffic. Yet amid the chaos, something remarkable happened. Nations that had been enemies for generations established emergency communication channels. Scientific data was shared openly. When the Chinese government revealed they'd been secretly communicating with the aliens for years, there was anger but also a rapid pivot toward cooperation. At the United Nations emergency session, representatives from 196 countries gathered to form Earth's first unified diplomatic response team. The selection process was surprisingly efficient, as traditional political maneuvering gave way to a shared recognition of the historic stakes. Dr. Reed was unanimously chosen to lead the linguistic team. James, whose monitoring station had received the message, found himself appointed as a technical liaison. General Williams would represent Earth's defense concerns. And in a move that shocked political analysts, Dr. Amal Patel, a previously unknown environmental engineer from Mumbai, was selected to lead the delegation based on an algorithm that identified her as possessing the optimal combination of intelligence, empathy, and creative problem-solving skills. As the team prepared for humanity's first official extraterrestrial meeting, James pulled Dr. Reed aside. "You haven't told them everything about the message, have you?" he asked quietly. Lisa glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. No. The apology was just the beginning. The rest of the message. It's a warning, James. These aliens, the Council, they're afraid. Afraid? Of us? Lisa nodded slowly. They say we've evolved in ways they didn't predict, ways they don't understand. And they're not the only ones watching us now. What does that mean? I don't know. Lisa clutched her tablet tighter. But I think we're about to find out. The meeting location was selected with precise symbolism. Tranquility Base, site of humanity's first lunar landing. A temporary dome had been erected over the historic site, preserving the original footprints while providing an atmosphere for the historic encounter. Dr. Amal Patel led the human delegation across the lunar surface, their movements awkward despite months of training. Behind her walked Lisa, James, General Williams, and 7 other specialists representing Earth's diverse regions and disciplines. The alien delegation awaited them inside the dome, 4 beings of distinctly different species, all observing the humans with what might have been curiosity. Admiral Trell stepped forward first, his translator device converting his speech to perfect English. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome Earth's representatives. This meeting is unprecedented. Dr. Patel maintained her composure admirably. Unprecedented for us as well, Admiral. May I ask why now? If you've been observing us for thousands of years, what prompted this revelation? The tallest alien, Grand Overseer Lox, moved forward. Honesty is appropriate. We have classified your species incorrectly for millennia. Recent developments have forced us to reconsider. What? Developments? General Williams asked sharply. Your fusion breakthrough, Counselor Mira replied, her voice melodic even through the translator. Your planetary rehabilitation efforts, your quantum computing advancements, your social adaptability, each alone would be noteworthy. Together, they represent the fastest technological and social evolution we have ever documented. James noticed the tension in the aliens' postures. These weren't beings who admitted mistakes easily. There's something you're not telling us, Lisa said, her linguistic training helping her read the subtle cues in their communication. The message mentioned others who are watching us. Who are they? The aliens exchanged glances, a surprisingly universal gesture. The Council is not the only power in the galaxy, Director Vask explained carefully. There are competing philosophies regarding emerging species. We favor observation and non-interference. Others take a more proactive approach. You mean they conquer, General Williams translated bluntly. That is a simplification, but not inaccurate, Admiral Trell admitted. The hegemony views promising species as resources to be developed, or threats to be neutralized. Dr. Patel processed this information quickly. And which do they consider us? Both, Grand Overseer Lox stated. Your adaptability makes you valuable. Your unpredictability makes you dangerous. How long do we have? James asked, understanding dawning. The hegemony has dispatched an assessment fleet, Counselor Mira said. They will arrive within 1 Earth year. The human delegation fell silent as they grasped the implications. First contact was not just a scientific milestone, it was a warning of possible extinction. Why are you telling us this? Dr. Patel finally asked. If non-interference is your policy, this meeting violates it. Admiral Trell stepped closer. Because we were wrong about you. And if we were wrong, perhaps we've been wrong about other things as well. Perhaps non-interference is not always the wisest course. You're offering to help us, Lisa realized. Not directly, Director Vask clarified. The Council cannot engage in open conflict with the hegemony, but we can share information, knowledge that might help you prepare. And what do you want in return? General Williams asked suspiciously. A new perspective, Grand Overseer Lox replied simply. Your species thinks differently than any we have encountered in 50,000 years of exploration. You find solutions where others see only problems. The Council has stagnated. We recognize this now. Dr. Patel considered the offer carefully. The knowledge you're offering, will it include weapons technology? No. All 4 aliens responded simultaneously. Then what good is it? General Williams demanded. Admiral Trell's expression shifted subtly. General, if weapons alone could defeat the hegemony, they would not still exist after 10 millennia. You need something they cannot anticipate, something they cannot calculate, and... What's that? James asked. We don't know, Counselor Mira admitted. That is precisely why we are here. Back on Earth, humanity faced a reckoning. The UN Security Council debated endlessly about whether to trust the Galactic Council's warnings. Some nations began massive military buildups. Others poured resources into space-based defenses. A few fringe groups advocated surrender before the conflict even began. But in research facilities across the globe, something extraordinary was happening. The information provided by the aliens turned out to be far more valuable than weapons, technology. It was foundational knowledge, principles of physics, biology, and material science that Earth scientists had been decades or even centuries from discovering independently. James found himself assigned to a think tank in Geneva, working alongside scientists from 30 countries. Their task: find humanity's edge. The problem is perspective, Dr. Karim argued during one late-night session. We keep trying to match their technology. We can't. Not in a year. Not in 100 years. Then what's our alternative? Asked Dr. Yoshida, reviewing the latest simulations. Lisa, who had joined their group after her linguistic expertise proved less useful than expected, looked up from her terminal. "We need to think about what makes humans different. The Council said we're unpredictable. The hegemony considers us dangerous because of it." "Why?" James stared at the whiteboard covered in equations and diagrams. "Because we don't follow expected patterns, we make intuitive leaps." "Exactly," Lisa nodded. "AI programs can predict patterns with near-perfect accuracy, but they struggle with genuine creativity. Maybe these advanced aliens have the same limitation." Dr. Karim looked skeptical. "You're suggesting we beat a spacefaring empire with creativity?" "I'm suggesting we consider options they won't anticipate," Lisa replied firmly. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert on the main screen. A video call from Dr. Patel, who had been appointed Earth's chief liaison. "We've received new information," she announced without preamble. "The hegemony fleet has accelerated. New arrival estimate, 4 months." The room fell silent. "There's more," Dr. Patel continued. "The Council has provided details about hegemony biology. They're highly advanced, but they have an unusual limitation. They're susceptible to certain sound frequencies. Their auditory processing is far more sensitive than ours." Dr. Yoshida leaned forward. "How sensitive?" "Enough that specific resonance patterns could incapacitate them temporarily. The Council believes this vulnerability has never been exploited because sound-based weapons are considered primitive by galactic standards. No advanced civilization would consider them viable." James felt a surge of excitement. "But we would." "Exactly," Dr. Patel nodded. "I need your team to develop this concept. Work with musicians, acoustical engineers, anyone who understands sound manipulation. This could be our edge." As the connection ended, the scientists looked at each other. With renewed purpose. "Sound weapons," Dr. Karim mused. "Primitive indeed, yet effective against certain Earth species, from insects to marine mammals." "The ultimate Trojan horse," Lisa added. "They'll expect advanced technology, not something as basic as manipulated sound waves." James smiled for the first time in weeks. "Let's get to work." Across the globe, similar breakthroughs were occurring. In Nairobi, researchers discovered the hegemony ships used a crystalline navigation system vulnerable to specific electromagnetic pulses. In Rio, a team developed a virus, not biological, but digital, that could potentially infiltrate the standardized communication protocols used throughout galactic civilization. None of these solutions alone could defeat an armada, but together, they represented humanity's unique approach, using apparent weaknesses as strengths, finding unconventional applications for simple principles, cooperating despite their differences rather than because of forced uniformity. 3 months later, as the first hegemony scout ships entered the solar system, humanity was as ready as it could be, not with fleets of warships or energy weapons, but with 1,000 small innovations that no advanced civilization would consider viable or logical. As James watched the distant dots of light appearing on tracking screens, he realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its refusal to follow expected paths. Where other species sought perfection through consistency, humans embraced the creative chaos of diversity. They were flawed, inefficient, often irrational, and that made them unpredictable. The hegemony was about to learn just how wrong they were about humanity's potential. The hegemony assessment fleet arrived with calculated precision, emerging from faster-than-light travel in a perfect formation around Earth's orbit. 12 massive vessels, each larger than humanity's largest cities, surrounded the planet like silent sentinels. On the command ship, Supreme Commander Drax studied the primitive world with disdain. The reports from both the Council and his own advanced probes indicated significant technological progress, but nothing that should concern the hegemony. This would be a standard assessment: demonstrate overwhelming force, accept submission, and begin the assimilation process. Broadcast the standard greeting, Drax ordered. All languages, all frequencies. His communications officer complied, sending the message that had heralded the end of independence for hundreds of civilizations. People of Earth, the collective hegemony acknowledges your advancement to pre-spacefaring status. Prepare for assessment and integration. On Earth, In the newly established Global Defense Coordination Center beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Patel received the transmission with grim determination. "They're right on schedule," General Williams noted unnecessarily. "And their message is exactly what the Council predicted." Dr. Patel nodded. "Send our response." The message Earth transmitted back was deceptively simple. "The people of Earth acknowledge your arrival and request clarification of your intentions." It was not the content of the message that mattered, but its carrier wave, embedded with the digital virus developed in Rio, designed to infiltrate the standardized communication systems the hegemony had used unchanged for millennia. On the hegemony flagship, Drax was surprised by the calm response. Most civilizations reacted with panic or aggression. This warranted closer investigation. "Deploy assessment drones," he commanded. Standard pattern, Level 3 surveillance. Thousands of small probes dispersed from the fleet, descending toward Earth's atmosphere. They would scan the planet thoroughly, identifying resources, technology levels, and potential resistance. As the drones entered the atmosphere, humanity implemented the second phase of their plan. Broadcasting stations around the world activated, sending precisely calibrated sound frequencies into the air. Inaudible to humans, but devastating to hegemony technology due to their crystalline components. Aboard the flagship, alarms blared as drone after drone went offline. "What is happening?" Drax demanded. "Unknown interference, Commander," his science officer reported with confusion. "The drones are experiencing some kind of resonance cascade failure." Drax's expression darkened. "Launch the Sentinels. Full combat protocols." The Sentinels, larger, armored versions of the drones with limited crews, deployed next. As they descended, Earth's defenses moved to Phase 3. Electromagnetic pulse generators, hastily constructed around the globe using Council-provided principles, activated in sequence. James watched from the coordination center as the Sentinels faltered. Not all of them. The EMP technology was imperfect. But enough to create chaos in the hegemony's perfectly ordered assault. "It's working," he whispered. "For now," General Williams cautioned. "But they'll adapt. They always do, according to the Council." Dr. Patel studied the tactical displays. "That's counting on them thinking like they always have. But we're forcing them to confront something new. Something that doesn't follow their established patterns." In Sakani orbit, Supreme Commander Drax faced a situation unprecedented in his 3-century career. The primitives were not simply resisting, they were using methods no civilized species would employ. Crude sound manipulation, electromagnetic disruption. These were the techniques of a pre-industrial civilization, yet somehow they were effective. Against hegemony technology. "Prepare for direct intervention," he ordered. "First-wave landing forces. Target their largest population centers." As transport ships began their descent toward Earth's major cities, humanity unveiled its final layer of defense. Satellites, repurposed civilian communications equipment, focused concentrated microwave bursts on the incoming vessels, targeting specific vulnerabilities identified from Council data. The transport's shields, designed to repel energy weapons far more advanced than anything humans could produce, failed to recognize the crude microwave attacks as threats until critical systems began overheating. "Impossible," Drax murmured as reports of landing craft failures streamed in. "They cannot have this capability." His tactical officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we're detecting a transmission from the lunar surface. It's the Council. They have representatives here." Drax's anger turned to cold fury. "The Council has interfered. This explains everything." "No, Commander," the tactical officer corrected carefully. "The Council representatives appear to be observers only. Our scans detect no advanced technology transfers. The humans are doing this independently." For the first time in his long life, Supreme Commander Drax felt something approaching doubt. The assessment protocols did not account for this scenario. A primitive species using their own primitive methods to effectively counter hegemony technology. "Full withdrawal," he ordered abruptly. "Recall all forces." "Commander?" his second questioned with surprise. "This requires reconsideration," Drax stated, "and consultation with the Directorate." As the hegemony forces retreated to a safe distance, celebrations erupted across Earth. But in the coordination center, Dr. Patel and her team maintained their focus. "This isn't over," she cautioned. "We've surprised them. But they'll be back, with new tactics. James nodded grimly. At least now we know. Know what? Lisa asked. That we were right to trust our instincts, James replied. And they were wrong about us all along. The respite lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of frantic preparation as humanity built upon their initial success, developing new applications of their hybrid technology, part primitive, part inspired by Council information. 3 weeks of unity, unlike anything Earth had experienced before, as former enemies became allies against an existential threat. When the hegemony returned, it was with a force 5 times larger than the assessment fleet. This is no longer an assessment, Admiral Trell explained during an emergency meeting on the lunar base. This is a subjugation fleet. Dr. Patel studied the holographic display showing the massive armada approaching Earth. They've adapted to our defenses? Undoubtedly, Counselor Mira confirmed. The hegemony has existed for 10,000 years because of their ability to learn and incorporate new defenses. General Williams scowled. So everything we accomplished was for nothing. On the contrary, Director Vask interjected. You have achieved something unprecedented. The hegemony has never committed a subjugation fleet to a pre-FTL civilization before. You have forced them to treat you as a genuine threat. James caught the subtle shift in the Council representative's demeanor. You're surprised by this, he realized. You didn't expect us to succeed even temporarily. Admiral Trell hesitated before responding. We anticipated you would show potential. We did not expect you to repel the initial assessment. Lisa narrowed her eyes. You used us as an experiment, to test the hegemony's vulnerabilities. And to test yours, Counselor Mira admitted. The Council has observed many promising species over the millennia. None have shown your particular combination of technological creativity and social adaptability. So, what happens now? Dr. Patel asked quietly. Earth cannot withstand this size of fleet, even with our new defenses. Grand Overseer Lox, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Now we offer you a choice. The Council has voted to extend provisional membership to Earth. The human representatives exchanged shocked glances. Membership? General Williams repeated skeptically. What exactly does that entail? Protection, Admiral Trell explained. The hegemony will not attack a Council world. It would violate the great compromise that has maintained galactic peace for millennia. There's a catch, James guessed. There's always a catch. Director Vask nodded. Council membership requires adherence to Council principles, including the policy of non-interference with developing species. You want us to abandon our own development path and follow yours, Dr. Patel translated. To become like you. It is the only way to ensure your survival, Counselor Mira stated simply. Lisa shook her head. But it would mean surrendering the very qualities that made us interesting to you in the first place. Our unpredictability. Our creativity. A necessary compromise, Grand Overseer Lox responded. The alternative is annihilation. General Williams slammed his hand on the table. So those are our options? Surrender our humanity or face extinction? Perhaps there is another way, a new voice suggested. All eyes turned to Dr. Karim, who had arrived from Earth with the latest defense updates. The Council fears the hegemony, he continued. The hegemony fears unpredictability. Both have existed in stalemate for thousands of years, neither willing to risk direct conflict. What if humanity offered a third path? Admiral Trell looked intrigued despite himself. What path? Mediation, Dr. Karim explained. You've both admitted that humanity thinks differently. We see patterns and possibilities that neither of you consider. What if we served as intermediaries? Not council, not hegemony, but an independent voice that both sides must acknowledge? Grand Overseer Lox appeared skeptical. The hegemony would never accept. They might, Dr. Patel interrupted, the idea crystallizing in her mind. If the alternative is direct council intervention in a conflict with Earth, you said yourself, that would violate the Great Compromise. A tense silence fell over the lunar base as the council representatives communicated silently among themselves. This proposal is unprecedented, Admiral Trell finally stated. So is humanity, By your own admission, James pointed out. Grand Overseer Locks studied the humans with new intensity. You would risk everything on negotiation? When your world hangs in the balance? Negotiation backed by strength, General Williams clarified. We've proven we can hurt them. Sometimes that's enough to earn respect. And if the hegemony refuses? Counselor Mira asked. Dr. Patel stood straighter. Then we fight, and the Council will have to decide whether to uphold its principles by standing with us, or to abandon them and prove that your civilization's values are merely convenient fictions. The challenge hung in the air like a physical force. For the first time, the Council representatives showed visible discomfort. We will convey your proposal to the Hegemony Command, Grand Overseer Locks finally conceded. But prepare your defenses. The Hegemony rarely negotiates with those it considers inferior. As the Council representatives departed, Dr. Patel turned to her. Team. We need a contingency plan, something they won't expect. James nodded grimly. I think I have an idea, but it's risky. Very risky. At this point, Lisa said quietly, risk is all we have left. The Hegemony subjugation fleet hung in space like a metallic cloud, its thousands of ships blocking the stars from Earth's view. On the flagship, Supreme Directorate Representative Crone had arrived to personally oversee what should have been a routine operation. The primitives request negotiation, he stated incredulously to Commander Drax. And you entertained this request? The Council has granted them provisional status, Drax explained carefully. A direct assault could trigger Council intervention. Crone's expression remained imperious. The Council is weak. They observe while we act. That is the natural order. Even so, protocol requires the subjugation of potential threats, Crone interrupted. I will attend this negotiation myself, and when it fails, as it must, you will proceed with the operation. On Earth, final preparations were underway. James's risky idea had evolved into Operation Lighthouse, a desperate plan that might save humanity or doom it completely. The negotiation was set to take place in Earth orbit aboard a hastily constructed station, neutral territory between the planet and the fleet. Dr. Patel would lead the human delegation, accompanied by Lisa, Dr. Kareem, and General Williams. The Council would send observers only, maintaining their pretense of non-interference while implicitly supporting Earth's position. As the shuttle carrying the human delegates docked with the station, Dr. Patel received a final communication from James, who had remained on Earth to oversee Operation Lighthouse. Everything is ready, his message stated simply. Good luck. The negotiation chamber was austere, a circular room with 3 identical tables arranged in a triangle. The human delegation took their position at one table. Admiral Trell and Counselor Mira sat at another as Council observers. The third awaited the Hegemony representatives. When they arrived, even the Council members seemed surprised. Representative Crone rarely left the Hegemony core worlds. His presence signaled the importance the Hegemony placed on this unusual situation. Let us dispense with pleasantries, Crone began without introduction. The collective Hegemony acknowledges Earth's Provisional Council status. We propose the following terms. Earth will surrender 50% of its resources and 20% of its population for Hegemony utilization. In exchange, we will permit limited self-governance under Hegemony oversight. The human delegation maintained their composure despite the outrageous terms. Those are not negotiation terms, Dr. Patel replied evenly. Those are surrender demands. They are generous concessions, Crone countered. Most species in your position receive none. General Williams leaned forward. Perhaps you misunderstand our position. Earth is not seeking terms of surrender. We are proposing alliance. Crone's expression remained impassive, but his tone revealed his disdain. Alliance? Between the Hegemony and a pre-FTL species? What could you possibly offer that we would value? Perspective, Dr. Kareem answered. As we've already demonstrated, our primitive approaches can overcome your advanced defenses precisely because they operate outside your experience. Imagine that creativity working for you rather than against you. Admiral Trell observed the exchange with barely concealed fascination. The humans were negotiating as equals, something unheard of for a species at their development stage. The Hegemony has no need for primitive perspectives, Crone dismissed. Our civilization perfected its development path millennia ago. Perfected? Lisa echoed. Or stagnated? When was the last time the hegemony truly innovated rather than simply refined existing technology? The question struck a nerve. Krone's posture stiffened. Innovation for its own sake leads to chaos. The hegemony values order and efficiency. Yet here you are, Dr. Patel noted, committing unprecedented resources to subjugate a primitive world that surprised you. That doesn't seem efficient. Krone rose from his seat. This negotiation is pointless. You have nothing to offer except obsolete philosophies about the value of chaos and unpredictability. Actually, Dr. Patel said calmly, we have something else to offer. A demonstration. She activated a communication device. James, initiate lighthouse. On Earth, James gave the command that activated thousands of devices simultaneously across the planet. Each one was simple, combining principles of quantum entanglement derived from Council information with Earth's robust broadcasting technology. In orbit, every display screen on every hegemony ship suddenly activated, showing identical images, Earth's history, culture, art, and achievements in a carefully composed sequence. But hidden within the transmission was something more profound, a question posed in the hegemony's most ancient philosophical language, one they had abandoned millennia ago in favor of logical precision. The question was simple yet devastating. What is your purpose beyond survival? Krone stared at the display with visible shock. How did you access our systems? How do you know this language? We didn't access your systems, Lisa explained. We're broadcasting on frequencies your systems are programmed to automatically monitor. As for the language, the Council provided historical records, but the question is entirely human. Admiral Trell could no longer maintain his neutral observer status. Remarkable. They've created a quantum-entangled broadcast network using only their existing technology infrastructure and basic Council principles. Impossible, Krone whispered, but the evidence was before him. On the hegemony ships, something unprecedented was occurring. The broadcast was spreading from system to system, carrying not just information, but a philosophical contagion. Crews who had never questioned their purpose were suddenly confronted with the most basic existential inquiry, posed in the language of their civilization's founders. This transmission must be stopped, Krone demanded. We can't stop it, Dr. Karim replied. It's already been sent. The quantum entanglement ensures it will reach every hegemony communication system instantly. But we can offer you something else. A conversation. A conversation? Krone repeated incredulously. Yes, Dr. Patel confirmed. About purpose, about potential, about the possibility that both the Council's passive observation and the hegemony's forced assimilation represent failed approaches to galactic civilization. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Krone's features. This is manipulation. Using philosophical warfare against us. It's communication, Lisa corrected. Something both your civilizations seem to have forgotten in your millennia. Of stalemate. We're not offering submission to either of your paradigms. We're suggesting a third option, genuine exchange. Admiral Trell rose from his seat. The Council would consider such an approach, if the hegemony were willing. All eyes turned to Krone, who stood rigid with conflict. The reports flooding in from his fleet showed spreading discussion, questions, even debate, concepts long suppressed in hegemony culture as inefficient and destabilizing. Finally he spoke. This approach is unprecedented. So are we, General Williams replied simply. After a long silence, Krone made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. I will consult with the Supreme Directorate. Until then, hostilities are suspended. As the hegemony representatives departed, Admiral Trell approached the human delegation. You have achieved something we thought impossible. You've created doubt in a system designed to eliminate it. That was our plan all along, Dr. Patel admitted. Not to defeat the hegemony militarily, we couldn't, but to make them question their assumptions. 3 days later, as Earth waited anxiously for the hegemony's response, a single ship detached from the fleet and approached the station. It carried not Representative Krone, but something far more significant. The first hegemony philosophical, Delegation dispatched in over 5,000 years. Their message was simple. The hegemony wished to learn. In the months that followed, an extraordinary transformation began. The subjugation fleet was withdrawn gradually. The Council, seeing an opportunity to break millennia of stalemate, cautiously engaged with both humans and the reformist elements within the hegemony. James stood with Dr. Patel on a viewing platform at the new Lunar Diplomatic Center, watching ships from a dozen worlds dock for the first Trilateral Galactic Conference. We were wrong about the aliens, he mused. But they were wrong about us too. That's the point, Lisa joined them, carrying data tablets for the upcoming session. Everyone was wrong. The Council thought observation without interference was wisdom. The hegemony thought forced assimilation was strength. We thought we were alone. Dr. Karim approached with Admiral Trell. The Sirius delegation has arrived. They're asking about the human perspective on their territorial dispute. Dr. Patel smiled. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our military capability. It was our ability to adapt, to question, to imagine alternatives, when faced with impossible situations. To see what others missed, James added. Admiral Trell, who had become Earth's strongest advocate in the Council, nodded. We had categorized your species incorrectly for thousands of years. We saw your conflicts, your divisions, your apparent inefficiency as weaknesses. We failed to recognize that these very qualities, your diversity of thought, your continuous questioning of established patterns, were in fact your greatest strengths. A notification chimed, announcing the conference would begin soon. Dr. Patel took a final look at Earth, visible through the dome's transparent ceiling. A blue marble suspended in darkness, home to a species that had rewritten its destiny by refusing to accept the limitations others placed upon it. We should go, she said. They're waiting for us to show them what else we've been wrong about all along. As they walked toward the conference chamber, humans alongside representatives of civilizations countless millennia older than their own, they carried with them the most powerful force in the universe, the capacity to imagine something new.